Good evening. To those of you who have signed up for notifications on either YouTube or WordPress, my apologies for the lateness of this talk. I will post it shortly after I finish the talk. Right now it's 6 p.m. And it's a pleasant, sunny summer evening in July. My day started getting out of bed a little bit later than planned. And as I went through my morning routine of shower and breakfast, I was wondering maybe I should defer the talk to later, and maybe not. And then I thought the evening would be a good time to do it. It's really nice meditating in my Zendo on these summer evenings. And it would be a nice atmosphere in which to give a talk. But I wasn't completely decided to do that. And a text message came in to say that Ed and Nivan would be coming up in an hour or so to attend to the beehives. So I thought, oh, okay. Well, I better move the trailer. I have recently bought a small but heavy trailer, and I had left it at a convenient place to hitch it up to my car, so it would be in their way as they came in. So I went out to move the trailer and found that with the gentle slope of the courtyard, I suppose, in my dressing gown and boots, I couldn't quite manage to move the trailer. So then I thought, well, I'll get Ed to give me a hand with it. And so I said, well, that means definitely going to be later rather than earlier giving the Dharma talk. So I decided to get dressed. And when I was dressed, I thought, well, I'll give it another shot at moving the trailer. And this time I put on some work gloves, and lo and behold, I moved it to the place where I wanted it to be, out of the way. It seemed easier. So I think there was probably some intuitive part of me, the intuitive part that was able to do it, was probably in my genes. But there does seem to be some research that suggests how you are dressed affects your mental state and your ability to do certain tasks. Now, I wasn't thinking of this when I was getting dressed, but when I did go out and give the trailer a second go and it moved, I remembered this. And so when mechanics put on their work clothes, or doctors put on their work clothes, or pilots put on their uniform, they're actually more psychologically oriented towards the task that they normally do in those clothes. Same with chefs, same with Dharma teachers, same with gardeners. You're actually more able to do the tasks that you normally do in those clothes. I suppose it's a little bit like body language. When you put on the clothes, your mind assumes the role, and in that assuming the role, becomes better able for the role. So dressed in my jeans and lumberjack shirt, I was more able to move the trailer. So then I decided it was time for another coffee and had my coffee. And after that, I thought I should really tend to the altar. And so the first thing I did was to change the flowers on the two altars, the Buddha altar in the Zendo and the Kuan Yin altar just next to the Zendo, or in the Zendo extension. And so I went about the garden in my jeans and lumberjack shirt, choosing flowers for the two vases. And it felt a little bit different because normally that part, I'm also in my robes. Not like now wearing my okesa, but wearing my rakusu and koromo kimono, and wondering what I'll do or say if a neighbor comes to pass by and sees me. Well, I think they're used to me in the robes at this stage. So having set a new arrangement of flowers and plant life in both altars, I set about cleaning the incense bowl. And this too, normally done with my rakusu and robes on. So just a little bit different. There's nothing that says you have to do it in your robes. Quite often in San Francisco Zen Center, you'll be doing this in your street clothes. At Zen Center in general, Tassajara, Green Gulch, San Francisco, it seems as though a fair amount of time is changing clothes, is given to changing clothes. You get up in the morning and you go to the Zendo. So you're wearing your robes. In San Francisco Zen Center, you then go back to your room after the morning zazen service ceremony and soji. And you go to your room, or you can stay in your robes and have breakfast, or go to your room and change. But either way, most likely when you go to work, you will change out of your robes. And then for evening zazen, you'll change back into your robes. At Tassajara, we spend longer periods of time in our robes the whole of the morning would be spent in your robes from 5 a.m. to noon. And then there would be a short break, and then there would be a work period. So you change into your work clothes. And then a few hours later, you change back into your robes. Right. So a lot of it is changing clothes. You get used to that. And different robes for different occasions. I mean, the kimono, juban, kimono, kuromo, pretty much the same. But if you're going to a class in the dining room, you wear rakusu. If you're going to service or zazen in the zendo, you wear your kesa if you have one, and so forth. So I set the altars. And I thought, yeah, evening would probably be a nice time to give this talk. So I just potted around for the day. Ed and Ivan came and I spoke with them for a little bit. Took a nap in the afternoon, enjoyed some coffee in the sunshine, and moved a few things around in the shed and in the house. And gave a little bit more thought to this Dharma talk. And my thoughts went back to this story that has been like a developing or recurring theme throughout these COVID-19 talks. The sense of time and ice ages and glacial periods within an ice age and interglacial periods within an ice age and hothouse ages and 160 million years ago the big continent Pangaea began to break up into the continents that we now know. So my thoughts returning to this and some interesting further details. So the Earth is about 4.5 billion years old. And if I remember correctly, life has been on this planet for about 2.5 billion years. 2,500 million years. I'm not too sure when animal life began, but I think it was about 1 billion years ago. And there's been numerous, they say we're in the 5th ice age. So there's been 4 previous ice ages. And when you don't have an ice age, you have a hothouse age. And generally the hothouse ages last considerably longer than ice ages. Ice ages typically run at a mere 100 million years or so. And mentioned in previous talks, we could be prematurely bringing the current ice age to a conclusion with our greenhouse gas emissions, prematurely driving this ice age into a hothouse age. But that remains to be seen, because I read during the week that a new method, which is very scalable, of capturing carbon has been discovered or found, studied, and proven to be effective. And that is to cover the soil with rock dust. And covering the soil with rock dust greatly improves its ability to capture carbon. So this could be a major tool in combating climate change, or at least in reducing the havoc and devastation that climate change will incur. It still doesn't properly solve the problem of overconsumption of the Earth's resources, but it's a good place to start. There's reason to be hopeful, just a little bit. $4.5 billion years old. And how many millions of species have come and gone in the time that life has been on this planet? And I had to look this one up, but I was pretty much correct. The sun has about 4.5, 5 billion years left. It depends on how you measure it in its present capacity. So we're about halfway through. What will happen to the sun in about 4.5 billion years is that it will expand, becoming, I think it's called a white giant. So basically it will flare up and then collapse into a red dwarf. And it won't happen instantly. It won't take like a couple of years. It'll take 1 billion years or so for all this to happen. But in about 4.5 to 5 billion years, the sun will have flared up and its circumference will reach Venus. That's our nearest planet on the way into the sun. And any remaining life on Earth will be scorched. Fortunately, we'll all be very comfortably set up on Mars. Right? We'll have migrated and colonized Mars. And with the growing intensity of the sun, we might even be able to make it very Earth-like. But the story gets even better. Around about the same time, just a little bit before, about 4 billion years from now, something even more spectacular is going to happen. And I'm sure if I have my numbers wrong, somebody will correct me. You are invited to correct me. But in about 4 billion years, a truly phenomenal event will take place. And that is our nearest galaxy, Andromeda, and our galaxy, the Milky Way, will crash. I was reading up about this during the week, and it is really spectacular. It's going to be. It will make the northern lights look like a flash of lightning. Apparently, in this merging and crash of the galaxies, there will actually be very few collisions because there's so much empty space between the planets and the stars. They'll pass through each other. But the centers of gravity for a lot of places will change, and orbits and trajectories will be warped. But the most spectacular thing will be for somebody living on Mars, because Earth might be getting a little bit too hot at the time. Or maybe Earth is still habitable and we've managed to keep ourselves alive for those billions of years. Right now, with the naked eye, you can actually see the galaxy Andromeda. I think it's the only galaxy you can see with the naked eye. And it's a little bit bigger than a star. Maybe it's a lot bigger than a star. It's like a cloudy star, when seen by the naked eye, so in the sky. But in about 2 billion years, it will have covered half the distance, thereabouts, and it will be significantly bigger. Very, very noticeable in the sky. If there is life on other planets, that is, we'll say, at the stage we were at 2,000 years ago, they will really consider this to be an omen, a portent of something good or something evil, we don't know. And then in about 4 billion years, when the merger is really underway, the sky, we think that there's a lot of stars in the sky when we look up at it on a really crystal clear night. And this, especially if you go to a place where you are relatively free from the light pollution of cities and urban development. If you can go into some remote place such as Tassajara and at night look up at the sky on a clear night, which is almost all the time, it's awesome how many stars there are. But with the arrival of Andromeda, the amount of stars that we currently see will just be like, I don't know how to describe what the difference will be, but it will be massive. It will make the northern lights look like just a flash of lightning or a flicker. The flicker of a candle. As the two centers of the galaxies get really close, our nighttime will disappear. And it will be almost as bright as daylight during the night, because there will be so many stars. Now that is something worth coming back for. So how many more species will this great Mother Earth give birth to between now and then? And for how long will we humans manage to survive? In all the millions of species that this great Mother Earth will have given birth to, are we really to be the only ones who will manage to measure the circumference of the Earth like our Greek friend Eratosthenes, who, by the way, was quite accurate. And measured it to be about 40,000 kilometers. Well, actually, he didn't use kilometers and he didn't use miles. He used stadia, but translating the measurements. I don't know if he measured it to be 40,000 kilometers and the real figure is 39, or the other way around. Or about 25,000 miles. The ancient Greeks, who weren't ancient at the time, they were new. The ancient Greeks, who, according to Spangler, deliberately chose not to include zero and infinity in their mathematics and in their calculations, who wanted to pin everything down to the concrete, and who were irritated by those irrational numbers that seem to go on endlessly without conclusion. The ancient Greeks, unlike our friends in India, their cousins in India, who quite happily had zeros and infinities and played deliriously with large numbers. It turns out that a kalpa is about 4.2 billion years. So our planet Earth is just a little bit more than one kalpa. And has just a little bit more than one kalpa left before being scorched clean by the sun. Are we the only species that this great Mother Earth will produce to be audacious enough to put its own kind on the moon, which, by the way, is going to drift out of orbit and disappear? At the time of this galaxy crash, we won't have the moon. I forget what the figure is, how many million years more the moon will be with us. But are we to be the only species to put satellites into space? The only species to be so finely deluded that we can perceive the problem of existence. The only species to say there is dukkha. I suspect not, but it's only a suspicion. Are we to be the only species foolish enough to take a vow or to make a vow to save all beings? The Bodhisattva, we're told, makes this vow not to enter nirvana, not to enter complete enlightenment until all beings have been saved. And the Bodhisattva practices, I looked this one up too, they go through 10 stages. And going through those 10 stages takes between 3 and 22 kalpas. So let's say on average 12 kalpas, depending on your aptitude. That's somewhere between 4 and 6 lifetimes of our sun. So the ancient Indians like to play with numbers. Like to play with large and small numbers, as is definitely apparent in the Perfection of Wisdom Sutra that we have been reading on Friday mornings and Sunday evenings. And the purpose of all this thinking, large-scale thinking, to me is twofold. One, it's to give a sense of perspective which will help prevent us or help us not get caught up in trivialities. Not get caught up in, I was given the wrong change. Not get caught up in some petty detail. But to lift our mind to this cosmic eye view of life. And in that perspective, perhaps, to realize that it is all the same day. So the first aspect that I think of, that this kind of thinking of the vastness of time and the vastness of space, and also in the Perfection of Wisdom Sutra, the immeasurableness of merit, is to lift our minds up from pettiness and petty details And the second function that I see is that it really challenges this idea that things are going to get better in the future. What future are you talking about? Next year? 100 years? 1,000 years? 1,000,000 years? 100,000 million years? When you think that something is going to get better in the future, what future are you thinking about? Your next life? How many lives will it take to satisfy you? How many lives will it take to give you what you want? So the second function of this grandiose thinking is to bring you back to the present. So lifting our mind away from pettiness, but also bringing our mind back to this moment. When you slice an onion, the whole universe slices the onion. When you eat ice cream, the whole universe eats ice cream. As Dogen says in the Genjo Koan, firewood abides in the phenomenal expression of firewood and fully includes past and present. It's not separate from the past. It is not separate from the present. And it is not separate from the future. The whole world is in each moment. The whole cosmos is in each leaf, each tree, each finger, each hair on your head. When you breathe, the whole world, the whole cosmos breathes. But we don't focus on that. We just focus on the experience, the act of breathing, or walking, or sitting, or lying down. With this perspective, it's a little bit easier to relate to the true practitioners of old who had nothing to look forward to because they were so completely present and so completely fulfilled in that being present. Our role is to occupy this life, this being, this strand of becoming, and to occupy it completely here and now. Just a reminder of Dogen's Genjo Koan. This concluding line is really beautiful. The nature of wind is permanent, or the nature of time is permanent. Because of that, the wind of the Buddha's house, the wind of the Buddha's house brings forth the gold of the earth and makes fragrant the cream of the long river. The long river of the cosmos, the long river of practice, the long river of being and becoming. Reading a little bit from the Perfection of Wisdom Sutra. Buddha says, "Tell me, Subhuti, do those who find the river think, I have attained the goal of finding the river?" I lost my page. Okay. The Buddha says, "Tell me, Subhuti, do those who find the river think, I have attained the goal of finding the river?" And Subhuti replied, "No, indeed, Blessed One. Those who find the river do not think, I have attained the goal of finding the river." And so it goes on. The Buddha says, "Tell me, Subhuti, do those who return once more think, I have attained the goal of returning once more?" No, indeed. "Tell me, Subhuti, do those who return no more think, I have attained the goal of returning no more?" Subhuti, no, indeed. Okay. So these are the, this is a reference to the 4 stages on the path to being an arahant. The 4 stages from the Pali Canon, so pre-Mahayana, what is pejoratively called the Hinayana. So the 4 stages being referenced here, like it's a little bit confusing with the first one. Do those who find the river think, I have attained the goal of finding the river? This is in Buddhism, the stream entrant is being referred to. So in the other translations that I came across, it said, do those who attain stream entry think, I have attained the goal of stream entry, or entering the stream. Entering the stream of consciousness or the stream of becoming that leads to enlightenment. Do those who have entered the stream think, I have attained the goal of stream entrant? And Subhuti says no. And then after that we get do those who return once more think, I have attained the goal of returning once more? So this is the second level of the once returner. And again, Subhuti says, no, indeed. And then the Buddha says, do those who return no more? So this is the non-returner. And then the 4th one is the arhat. So the 4 stages, the stream entrant, the once returner, the non-returner, the arhat. Much simpler. The Bodhisattva practices for, we'll say, 12 kalpas. Each kalpa about 4.2 billion years. Or, in the Buddha's day, stream entrant, guaranteed enlightenment within the next 7 rebirths. The once returner, guaranteed enlightenment in the next rebirth. The non-returner is so close to being fully enlightened that they will attain it at the point of death. So they're non-returner. And the Arahat, somebody who has attained full enlightenment in this lifetime. So much different time scale. The Buddha did not get caught up in this grandiose kind of thinking. He didn't play, well, he did play a little bit with these large numbers. But he kept bringing it back to the central point, or what was for him the central point. I teach that there is dukkha and the cessation of dukkha. Simply teaching that there is dukkha, dissatisfaction, would not be enough. Many philosophers have talked about this. And there wouldn't be much to listen to if that's all he had to say. But that he went on to say, there is the cessation of dukkha. This, I believe, should arouse your interest. The Pali Canon does, however, list 27 Buddhas before Buddha. So the writers, the composers, were not entirely immune from the Indian tendency to play with large and grandiose numbers. In Zen, we don't go through the full 27 Buddhas before Buddha. We simply say homage to the 7 Buddhas before Buddha. And it turns out, if you read the list of names of the 7 Buddhas before Buddha, it turns out that the 7th one is actually Shakyamuni Buddha. Bibashu Butsu Daiyosho Shiki Butsu Daiyosho. Daiyosho means great teacher. Bibashi Butsu Daiyosho. Butsu means Buddha. Bibashi Butsu Daiyosho Shiki Butsu Daiyosho Bishafu Butsu Daiyosho Kurasan Butsu Daiyosho Kunagon Muni Butsu Daiyosho Kasho Butsu Daiyosho Shakyamuni Butsu Daiyosho. So how come Shakyamuni Butsu Daiyosho is a Buddha before Siddhartha, before Buddha? Shakyamuni Buddha is one of the 7 Buddhas before Buddha. I will leave that for you to ponder. In this vast world of space and time, we have to find our way where we are. But where we are includes the whole vastness of space and time. As Dogen says in the Genjo Kon, the entire moon and the vast sky are reflected in dewdrops on a blade of grass. Each reflection, no matter how long or short its duration, completely manifests the vastness of the dewdrop and realizes the limitlessness of the moonlight in the sky. Thank you all very much. Enjoy your practice, and may it lead you nowhere.